Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. Your host, Charles Hammaker, here with Belle Garcia. As always, we are approaching the final week of August. We're getting into September. Seahawks are back. Kraken are going to be playing preseason. You know, the important games for the Mariners continue to roll on. The Sounders and Rain. The pressure is on for them to secure their playoff spots.
Storm continue their
playoff run. Things are getting important. Things are getting intense, and we're getting into almost fall. Not quite yet, but still. It's a little wild that we're getting into that sort of territory here. And we continue to have important actual Seahawks news to look at, which, you know, for the longest time, it was like a headline here about something minimal. And now we've got actual preseason games, some unfortunate weeks for a couple guys. So taking all that into consideration, we're going to go straight into our Seahawks here in their past preseason game against the Bears here at home.
Yes, they faced the Bears on August 18th, and unfortunately, that game did not look good for the Seahawks. They lost 27-11. We have some offensive players and defensive players of the game, but is there anything that you wanted to mention before we dive into that?
I mean, you know, if we wanted to overreact and pull the alarm, we'll get to alarm pulling.
Of the preseason.
Yeah, if we wanted to get into that sort of thing, then we could just go full blown. This is what the season might look like as a whole.
No.
They just look bad overall. I mean, special teams had mishaps. The offense, you know, this was supposed to be Drew Lock's big week.
We'll get into that
to start. Yes. The defense didn't seem like they could do much to stop anything. I mean, 27, they didn't get that touchdown until late in the fourth, I don't believe. So, yeah, this was just a microcosm of some issues that need to be cleaned up. Third down efficiency was poor, but that's been an issue for the Seahawks for years. But yeah, didn't look too good. I mean, there was a lone star on offense that we both selected as we look over here towards offensive players of the game. But I mean, outside of that, it was one of those games that's ugly, and I think you just got to flush it.
Yeah, and you did mention that touchdown, our only touchdown of the game. So that is why I based my decision for player of the game, offensive player of the game, and agreed with you, actually, with Darwin Thompson for that reason again.
Yeah, and it seemed like, at least to me, checking in on this game, like because we were at Storm versus Mystics game 1, so we weren't at that game. It seemed like, you know, you look at box score or even just the general what was going on in that game, it seemed like Darwin Thompson was really the one creating the highlights for Seattle in that game. So, yeah, I think it was kind of a clear cut. I mean, Jacob Eason throwing the ball didn't have bad stats, but Darwin Thompson, I believe, was just kind of the one that there was one really cool play I got to watch. It was Jacob Eason was throwing the ball to Aaron Fuller, 2 UW guys, and Fuller looked like he had this nice, like, weird spinning catch and landed with his elbow in the end zone, but the ball hit the ground. So unfortunately not. But so Darwin Thompson, I mean, with sort of the uncertainty of the backfield right now with injuries and Chris Carson retiring,
right?
I mean, this is, again, with preseason, this is your chance to put your mark out there and say, hey, I've earned some snaps here. So who knows? Maybe we see Darwin Thompson throughout the regular season. But, yeah, offensive player of the game for me, that was pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, I agree. I will also say that your pick last week also looked pretty good this game, too, DJ Dallas. So just a little something to continue to monitor there. Our defensive player of the game, I went with defensive tackle Myles Adams, who had 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. And it just, in comparison with last game, it just feels like he's giving consistent pressure to the QBs. So that's why I went ahead and went with him.
Yeah, and I feel like that's really important to note. You talk about the consistent pressures aspect of things. How long with this team have we been looking at pass rush, right? I mean, you bring in guys on the outside, but also, you know, with the 3-4, your DTs are going to be forced to stop the run. Myles Adams there. I mean, if he can do that and affect the quarterback, that's a huge bonus. And you're kind of looking, you know, with the last few seasons, no Jerron Reed, having gone to the Chiefs now. I don't know if he's still with Kansas City. Poona Ford is kind of your main guy. I know that, help me out here. Older defense, Al Woods. Al Woods is kind of your guy there. So I'm sure Myles Adams is pushing from one of those other spots behind him and Poona Ford and Al Woods on the depth chart. But I mean, yeah, consistent pressure, that's one way to get noticed on the D-line.
Definitely.
So that's a good call. I went with Kobe Bryant here. I thought that It was a good game for him. 5 solo tackles. All of his tackles were solo. The 2 pass deflections, we're going to need that in the secondary, and especially with the hype that was around him. Obviously wearing the number 8, it's a big deal, for who he dedicated it to.
Yeah.
Right. And the kind of the anticipation he was on that Cincinnati team that got into the playoff. So, kind of see a little bit of what you're hoping for with Bryant there. So that's why I went with Kobe for my defensive player of the game.
I will just say that I don't think I'm ever going to get used to hearing that name and thinking about football. So we'll move on here to some injury news. Kenneth Walker, unfortunately, we have injury news for him. The team will, let me gather my thoughts here. The team will feature Walker. Rookie running back reportedly could get as much of the load as Rashad Penny in the Seattle running game. But some developing news here. He has a hernia issue and could face a lengthy recovery time, and Pete Carroll hopes he can be ready for the season opener. So a bit of a crusher there in terms of the injury news.
Yeah, it just gets worse, though, as you look on. He had the hernia surgery. Is expected to make a full recovery. The plan was to make it to week 1. And now, with the latest news coming out yesterday, there's no return date that's really solid. They haven't come up with something solid because he's still tender after that surgery. So, again, I talk about with Thompson and DJ Dallas, your running back room's open right now. There's no certainty there. Rashad Penny didn't play in the Chicago game either, I don't believe. He's still dealing with something, and they want to be 100% with him. So, your running back room is for week 1. I think it's going to be running back by committee. And I don't know if we see Walker until, maybe a few weeks after the opening of the season. So, again, something to keep an eye on as it continues, but not really bright considering the history of since Marshawn Lynch, the history of running backs and the injuries. Look at guys like Thomas Rawls, CJ Procise, Chris Carson dealt with injuries. Yes. Rashad Penny dealt with injuries, obviously, for the majority of the beginning of his career. So a lot of these guys, it's like, what's going on? What's wrong with the running back room? Can we find a stable of a guy? And that was kind of the thinking with the Kenneth Walker pick.
Yeah.
So that's
hopefully a speedy recovery and nothing more serious in terms of injury.
Yeah, hopefully that, week 1 is obviously the most optimal, but week 2, I'm sure you're fine. Yeah. Right. So something to keep an eye on, though.
Exactly. Not exactly injury news, but we did mention Drew Lock was supposed to have that start in that second preseason game. He did not get the start because he had COVID. So a mere hour after the last headline, the Seahawks QB another headline came out that he had tested positive for COVID, and so he would miss Thursday's game.
Yeah, that was unfortunate because, we got the news that he was going to be the quarterback, and that makes sense just because of their plan to get both guys time with him and Geno. And then like an hour later that he tested positive. It's like, that's just bad. So I know that over the past week, Carroll has said that they're going to feature Locke prominently against Dallas just to, recoup the time that he missed. So that'll be interesting to see how long he plays, maybe 3 quarters or so or what. But certainly not ideal.
No, not at all. It was a bummer to get that news right after, as you said, an hour after. So we'll move on here. There were an injury that occurred during the second preseason game against the Bears. Damian Lewis had to exit the game on a stretcher. Later found out that the x-rays were negative and he just suffered a lateral ankle sprain. So who knows what his timeline for return will be, but unfortunate news.
Pete sounded more up. The thing with Pete Carroll, in case you haven't been following, he always likes to give you the optimistic look at things. Yeah. And he said it's not going to be a long-term sort of thing, but especially as an offensive lineman, being able to pivot and move, you don't want to mess with the ankles, don't want to mess with the legs. So hoping that Damian, that's not a big deal. But from what I understand, Phil Lewis, I believe it's Phil Lewis, the guard, has impressed in training camp and was even pushing for a starting spot. So, you might be a guy who might be, you're not too much of a drop off if he has to fill in these regular season games. So I'm sure we'll see some of that. Phil Haynes, guard out of Wake Forest. We'll probably see him a lot against Dallas. with the ones, I'm assuming. They probably won't have Damian at their next game, and that'll be a big showcase for him. So that's a big, again, preseason is a big opportunity depending on injuries and such. So we'll see how that goes for Phil.
Did we have any roster moves in this week?
Yeah, just some stuff as we'll see more of this as well leading up to this next game against Dallas. And then after that game, as the roster goes from, we're at 85 right now, we have to get to like 53. This is going to be a big deal.
Goodness.
Because I know during the preseason, everybody gets their little preseason favorites. It'll be difficult. So the team waived tight end Cade Brewer, defensive tackle Matthew Goddell, quarterback Elijah Jones, safety Bubba Bolden, and released the linebacker. This nice gentleman, his last name is very difficult. Linebacker Joel Igbunwe. So again, cutting it down, getting down to 85. So 5, they were at 90, had to get to 85. I think the next one's going to be 75, and we'll probably see that within the next few days. But then he got to get down to 53, and we start to see what the depth chart will be and stuff like that. But yeah, this will be a critical time in the next few weeks for a football team that's really searching for where it goes post Russell Wilson, post Bobby Wagner, and we haven't seen Jordan Brooks in the preseason yet. No. So I'm sure we'll see him for a little bit out there next week. But again, big proving ground for some of these guys.
Well, it sounds like we'll have more roster moves to report on as the weeks go by here. We'll move on to some league news. On August 18th, the Deshaun Watson fiasco kind of came to an end, sort of. They decided on a disciplinary settlement. The QB will be suspended for 11 games without pay and fined $5 million. Watson's fine and contributions from the NFL will create a fund of $7 million total, and that will be actually donated to nonprofit organizations that educate young people on healthy relationships, promote education and prevention of sexual misconduct and assault, support survivors, and related causes. So it sounds like really they're just trying to bring awareness to don't do what Deshaun did.
Yeah, pretty much. And at the end of the day, though, I mean, with the money that he got from Cleveland, this $5 million seems little. Yeah. So at the end of the day, there could have been more done, but I'm glad it was more than what was initially given. But still,
the game suspension.
From what I was reading, the owners didn't want this to continue to drag on, so they just had to cut it, compromise, which is unfortunate. But we can't do anything. So.
Right. That's about it for our league news. The Seahawks record currently stands at 0-2 in the preseason. So looking ahead, they face the Dallas Cowboys on August 26th at 5 p.m. That is the final preseason game and will be showcased on NFL Network. And we will move on to our Seattle Mariners now.
Remember we talked a lot about mixed bags last week. Same sort of thing with the series here for the Mariners. I mean, very little roster moves, so the team kind of stayed pretty consistent in terms of the actual players in the games. But we look at the end of this, the latter 2/3 of this sort of California divisional road trip. And, the first series we look here against the Anaheim Angels, you see the nice broom little graphic there. So there's obviously a sweep to be involved. And then the next series was not as fortunate. So we'll get into it, though. So August 15th begins a 3-game stretch, as you can see, against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. The first game was a 6-2 win. Player of the game designated hitter Jesse Winker. Winker with 2 hits, 2 runs, and 2 RBIs on the day. On the 16th, to take the series, Seattle would win that one 8-2. Player of the game, center fielder Julio Rodriguez. Julio picking up where he left off. 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. On the 17th, to close out the series in a matinee game, the Mariners would win that one 11-7. So this one was on YouTube. It was a whole thing. Mm-hmm. There was a influencer broadcast where Bill Nye was there. Joel McHale. It was weird. It was kind of weird. I didn't watch it. It was on strictly YouTube, though, but the Mariners pretty consistently throughout the game dominated this one. Anaheim was able to pick up some runs at the end of the game. Shohei Ohtani hit a home run at the end of the game, but this was the scoreboard kind of reflects it differently than it was. Player of the game, catcher Cal Raleigh. Raleigh, with this player of the game, was actually named the YouTube player of the game and got a little trophy for it. It was kind of funny. Raleigh had 2 hits, 2 runs, and 3 RBIs. He had a 2-homer day. It was the first multi-homer game of his career. The Mariners now go to 17-2. I believe is the team's record when Raleigh hits a home run. So that's pretty good. But as you can see, though, a sweep. Pretty good. You took care of a team that, is floundering. They've got an interim manager. Shohei Ohtani doesn't really play well against the Mariners outside of these last 2 games. Mike Trout got activated after this series, so he wasn't playing against us. This is an Angels team that you should be beating overall. Right. You can give up a game, sure, but you got to win a series. The same can be said for Oakland, who shipped off Frankie Montes at the trade deadline. They've got a bunch of guys that just really are older veterans or guys. This is a bad ball club. Straight to it. It's a bad ball club. And you lose the series to them. You win the first game 10-2, so the offense continues to click following that game against the Angels, despite the day off. Pardon me. So August 19th at the Athletics, the first of 3 games was a 10-2 win. You come out, smash them. Player of the game, third baseman Eugenio Suarez, 2 hits, 2 runs, 5 RBIs for Gino. Gino feeling the good vibes with 2 homers on the day. Think, okay, you come out, you dominate Oakland, great. The next day, Logan Gilbert's on the mound looking to bounce back after having a couple difficult outings against some solid teams. Mm-hmm. The Mariners lose this game 4-3 in 10 innings, just unable to get enough out. 3 runs after getting more than 10 in the last 2 games, kind of a drop-off. Suarez, again, the player of the game, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 RBI, and a walk. So before I continue to game 3 of the series, that game 2, there's a reason I want to talk about this game. So we're in the bottom of the 10th inning. The bases were loaded, unfortunately. Diego Castillo, normally pretty good in his reliever role this year, had a bad game in this one. The Mariners brought in Sam Haggerty from the outfield to be a 5th infielder. So they had 5 infielders. I believe effectively the idea was to, Oakland was going to hit something in the infield, and they Seattle wanted to get the runner out at home on a force out. It happened. Sheldon Noisy hit a little ball in the infield, was going to go right to Haggerty, actually. But Diego Castillo attempted to field the ball, botched it, and I think Tony Kemp was able to cross the plate relatively easily. So it's like, that's not your job.
Right.
You've got 5 infielders. You've got to
stick to the play.
And I believe Haggerty would have had him out at home. So really bad way to lose that one. Poor offense. And then that poor play at the end of the game. Not how you should be playing. But you think, right, we talk about this all the time with series. We talk about it throughout the season. Just win the series. So come back the next game and win it. Not the case. Again, only the 3 runs. The offense, leaves 9 men on base in this game, 8 on base in that last game we were just talking about. Luis Castillo did not look like the pitcher we've seen the last few outings, did not have his control in this one, which, the grand scheme of things is fine. It's a lot of games. But Seattle loses on the 21st, 5-3 to lose the series. Julio takes our player of the game here with 3 hits and an RBI. Another 3-hit game for Julio, which continues to ramp it up. But again, it's frustrating. I know in the grand scheme of things, you've got about 40 games left. But I think you do have exactly 40 games left. But you've got to be better. This is just, you can't lose series to Oakland. You can afford to lose a game here and there, but you're going to play the majority of the rest of your season against divisional opponents. Not Houston, but Texas, Anaheim, and Oakland. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to beat them in series. You cannot afford to keep messing this up, because at the end of the day, you would like to have the number 1 wild card spot and host those 3 wild card games at home, nonetheless. So, it's you do control your own destiny at this point, and last year's Mariners did. We are at the point, I think, through 122 games or so. Last year's team was the same record as this year's team right now.
Oh, goodness.
But the difference in that is we had like a negative 40 run differential. This year we have a plus 33.
Okay.
And you're in a better wild card. You're better playoff seeding. That being said, I try to get away from that. The other teams that you're vying for a wild card spot against are all playing each other a ton. And that should help you take that number 1 spot and just ascend and keep it. And, hopefully the other 2 wildcard spots have to sort themselves out. The 1 is settled. It's not happening right now. You have to get into that. I mean, I think they're all tied right now, all the wildcard spots. So you're all tied. You have to go on a little run here, which I'm sure you can do. At the last 17 series, you've only lost 4 of them, which is pretty good. But it's concerning seeing the offense the last 2 days, the way that it's underperformed, knowing that, if this is how you're performing against these poor teams, playing with the easiest schedule in baseball, and you're not doing it's Yeah, so got to be more consistent. So with Julio picking up a couple of those 3-hit games here for player of the week, I just went with Julio. Statistics wise, I cheated. I went with a statistical pick: 30 plate appearances, 10 hits, 6 runs, a triple, a homer, 4 RBIs, 15 total bases, 2 stolen bases, a 333 batting average, as well as a 333 on base percentage, 500 slugging. Those last two numbers together equal an 833 OPS. Bell's pick, obviously, to me, makes sense here. I mean, with the way Gino performed in those first 2 games against the Athletics, who was basically your offense. So I don't blame you at all for going for Gino. But was that sort of the direction you went with the way that he performed in those first 2 games against Oakland? What was the decision making behind that?
It was the 2 games against Oakland, and then looking at the statistics as well. So he had 21 plate appearances, 5 runs, 5 hits, 1 triple, 3 home runs, an 8 RBI, 16 total bases, 3 walks, a 238 average, a 333 on base percentage, a 762 slugging, and a 1.095 on base plus slugging. So that was my pick. And I like the good vibes that Gino brings. And when it's good to see him doing well on offense instead of being frustrated and throwing his helmet on the ground.
Or breaking his bat in half.
Or breaking his bat, yeah.
Yeah, the triple is a little funny to see there for Gino. Don't expect that from him too much. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, since that trade, again, when it was initially thought by many that Gino was a throw-in, he's been pretty, I think they showed it on the YouTube broadcast on Wednesday that he's got 3 defensive runs saved as compared to the last 3 years where it's been negative defensive runs saved. So he's a plus defender. He brings offensive value for this team at the third base spot. So I don't blame you whatsoever. Just would like to, as a whole, see this team offensively continue to put more runs on the board, just be better offensively. I think this team is actually in the bottom 10 in singles on the year, which is kind of bad. The extra base hits are great, but we got to be able to put guys on base regardless. No injury news, luckily. It was pretty good. And the only team news related note that we have was that on the 16th of the month, it was announced that we were going to get the official date for the MLB All-Star Game next year in Seattle. The All-Star Game in 2023 here in Seattle at T-Mobile Park will be played on July 11th. So if you're marking in the calendar, July 11th is next year's All-Star Game. Obviously, there are going to be other activities leading up to that. There's the celebrity softball game, the home run derby, the futures game. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on for All-Star Week and all the festivities. So that will be really fun when the league comes up here to Seattle for that Midsummer Classic. In some league-related notes, we've got some playoff stuff and some stuff going on in the division. On the 15th, the Rangers fired their head coach. They fired Chris Woodward months after major offseason spending, nearly $500 million on 2 players in Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. As the team continues to trend downwards at their current pace, the Rangers would have their 4th straight losing season. The MLB playoff schedule is set, so if things go well and Seattle ends in the number 1 playoff spot in the wild card, this is what we're looking at if you want to plan when you're going to buy tickets or you're going to have to call out sick for work. October 7th will be game 1 of each of the wild card series. There are 4 games taking place that day. October 8th is game 2, 4 games that day as well. And if necessary, depending on those 4 series, October 9th would be game 3 of those wildcard series. So that October 7th, 8th, and 9th, I'm assuming that's a weekend. I'm going to cheat and look ahead here. Yeah, that's a weekend, the first technical week of October. So that's a big series. I mean, I believe the last Mariners scheduled regular season game is the 4th. I think that's against Detroit. So you'd get like a day off maybe, but then the weekend ramps up. So we'll look towards that hopefully maybe midway through September and have a better understanding of where Seattle sits. On the 17th, things continued to be poor for Texas as they fired their president. The Rangers announced that they have relieved John Daniels of his duties as president of baseball operations, and general manager Chris Young will be taking over. So sort of a gutting of the front office there for the Rangers after spending tons of money in the offseason, understanding that it was still kind of a rebuild, but not being happy with their results. So team record-wise and standings-wise, the Mariners sit at a 66-56 record at this point in time, as they have the day off today. They start a 2-game series. It's a 2-game series against the Washington Nationals, who recently gutted their team, trading Juan Soto, Josh Bell to the Padres. The first game of that series on Tuesday here is a 7-10 start. These are obviously back in Seattle, so this homestand starts with this 2-game series. The 24th versus the Nationals is a 1-10 start on Wednesday. Then the Cleveland Guardians series is a 4-game set, which begins on the 25th with another 1-10 start. That's on Thursday. So 2 day games during the week, back to back. Yeah, a little odd. I believe that game is also on YouTube. So if you're looking for where that game is on Thursday, it's on YouTube. The 26th and 27th are 7-10 starts. This is the beginning of Ichiro weekend. There's giveaways all throughout Friday through Sunday. His jersey number, I believe the number 51 will be retired on Saturday. And then the 28th is a 1-10 start. And the Sunday game is a bobblehead giveaway. So I believe they're still tickets for Friday and Sunday, but Saturday is sold out. So if you wanted to be there Saturday, I'm sorry, unless you can find a reseller or a scalper, you're out of luck. We head over to actual playoff games, not theoretical ones. As the Storm played their first round matchup against the Washington Mystics. Bell and I were on hand for that. So, Bell, why don't we take a look at that past series against Washington and all the fun that happened over the past 2 games?
Yeah, first game was on August 18th. That was a Storm win, 86-83, a very close Storm win, and that was close throughout the whole game. Our player of the game is Brianna Stewart with 23 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists. Our second player of the game would be Lloyd with 16 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and 12 of her 16 points in the fourth. Now, Jewel had a bit of a dry spell at the beginning of that one, and I wasn't sure if we were going to see her get hot and get some shots up, but she came in at the perfect time and really helped close that out. So, any takeaways that you noticed?
I mean, there were some things that set up for game 2, right? I mean, this is game 1 of the series. Seattle gets the first 2 at home. If you're Washington, you're thinking, hey, we have to force one of the. I mean, if you can come out in game 1 and take it, sets you up even better for potentially sending this game back to Washington for game 3. As you mentioned, Jewel really quiet. I believe she was 0 for 4 or something through the third quarter. And then in that fourth was able to just take over. I mean, if we look at Storm history, even the last 2 seasons, let alone their entire career, Jewel has been very clutch for this team, some buzzer beaters in there, but was really able to take over. I mean, it seemed like everything that first game, anything Seattle did, it was Elena Deladon, just respond. But Jewel Lloyd was able to get out there, get Seattle some buckets when they needed them, and then Seattle was able to get some stops down the stretch. That was playoff basketball in its finest. It was great. But some stuff to note going into the next game. Obviously, you have to defend EDD much better, and you'd like to see a better start from one of your stars like Jewel.
Yeah, and you could say that both of those definitely did happen. So on the 21st, again against the Mystics, they won once again. This one was a bit more one-sided here, 97-84. Our player of the game was Sue Bird. So this was my choice. I don't know if you completely agreed, but
makes sense.
18 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds. And I just thought that she came out and realized the intensity that she needed to provide in order for the Storm to close this one out in game 2. So normally I don't think this is what we've seen from Sue during the season. She doesn't need to be the scorer, but in terms of closing out a game, she definitely showed up.
And I'll say this, with Sue, obviously, I mean, the assists are her thing. Great facilitator, good passer. I believe the WNBA assist leader, right? If you don't follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram, CirclingSeattleSports, Twitter, at CirclingSports, we do our point guard matchups for each game. And, with the points per game, each game, it feels like as we've gotten through the end of the season, Sue's points per game go up. And it's interesting to see that because, again, the last few years, not primarily a big score, hasn't been that sort of thing for Sue. It's been Stewie and Jewel.
Right.
And to see that, I think the really important word that you used was intensity. Coach Quinn said at post game or it might have been pregame. One of the press conferences on Sunday was that, Sue's usually the calming presence, usually the one who's got her head on right in the locker room, no matter what. that emotion after hitting that bucket, I think it was a breakaway, and sort of icing it. It was like, she's pumped. And that building from like the third quarter on, it got louder and louder and louder. And I think that final bucket was kind of like the topper.
Yeah.
Put it away. So,
and that's exactly how she described it. So she did say that was when she realized that the game was pretty much over and they had won. So our second player of the game is Brianna Stewart with 21 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. And Stewie started the game a little bit rough. So her and Jewel kind of switched off there. Jewel was pretty consistent. Yes. Stewie was pretty she was struggling and then picked it up.
First half 0 for 5.
Yeah.
Had the free throws for sure. But yeah, Jewel was, buckets throughout the game, a lot of threes.
Yeah.
Stewie, flirted with a triple-double.
She did.
Only 2 assists away. I think the important quote from Coach Quinn post-game was that whatever we need Stewie to do, she does. But I think for player of the game, like primary honors, that goes to Sue. And before I let you continue forward,
go ahead.
I had a friend over the past week. It was Comic-Con, so if you want to call me a nerd, go ahead. Let's do it. But I had a friend in town, one of the artists, actually, I don't know if we can go to my camera here, create an artwork of Sue out of 10. So, of course, I got number 10 here because, I'm biased. A limited edition. Probably out of focus. You get the picture though. But it was just cool to see that Sue was able to, I think you put it perfectly. The intensity is a great word to describe it there. And Seattle's going to need that down the stretch. I know it's her last year, but her contribution is obviously huge, especially going into this next series with a team that is loaded through the bench.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Ridiculous. So I'll let you get to it.
Moving on to some injury news here. Obviously, we know that Mercedes Russell was out for the season, but she has not made an appearance yet. So she's still out from reoccurring headaches. So we don't know when we'll see Mercedes Russell yet, but hopefully soon. On the 21st against the Mystics, Gabby Williams would leave the game with a concussion. Her recovery timeline is unknown. She did leave in the third quarter with a towel over her head, and it was later reported that she had a concussion. So that's tough for the Storm because Gabby has really been producing in all facets of the court. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully, Steph did a good job of filling in when Gabby left. So.
Yeah, it's just Gabby's athleticism, and you talked about it. I believe it was last week's CSS on Converge episode before the Thursday game about coming out with confidence. And what did she do immediately in that game? Come out, I think, one of the media timeouts, 4 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, a block, 2 blocks, just immediately all over. Not necessarily leading in one thing, but just being able to be sort of the Swiss Army knife of that. So, yeah, that'll be huge. I know that we get a few days off between the end of this series and the Vegas series. But, yeah, we'll obviously, once we get updates, we'll try to update you as quick as we can. But concussions can be very different case by case.
Moving on to some team notes here. On the 16th, Brianna Stewart was named AP Player of the Year. So forward Brianna Stewart has been named, of course, the 2022 AP Player of the Year, earned the award for the second time in her career after leading the league and matching a career high with 21.8 points per game. Stewart also earned AP First Team recognition for the third straight season, earning first team recognition in her last 4 eligible seasons after earning second team honors as a rookie in 2016. It is also the second time Stewart has earned the AP WNBA Player of the Year honors, also receiving the award in 2018 prior to being named the 2018 WNBA MVP. She won the AP College Basketball Player of the Year award 3 straight years at UConn from 14 to 16 and has earned the AP's top award 5 times in 8 eligible seasons between college and the WNBA. So some season averages here for Stewie: 21.8 points per game, 7.6 rebounds per game, 2.9 assists per game, 1.6 steals per game, and 0.9 blocks per game. Marked just the second season a player averaged 21 plus points per game, 6 plus rebounds, 2 plus assists, 1 plus steal, and 0.09 plus blocks. The only other player was Stewart during her 2018 WNBA MVP season. Her against herself, I guess. And Brianna Stewart and Lloyd were invited to the 2022 USA Basketball Women's National Team Training Camp.
Before we move on, all of this, the accolades and all of that, just simply puts it, I think I tweeted that during the 18th game, that you have to appreciate everything that Stewie's doing now, regardless of what happens next year, whether she goes overseas, all that sort of thing. That's not for us to worry about right now. You have to appreciate that, because that blurb on itself, Stewie's an all-timer regardless. But the stat about the averages, the only other player to accomplish that ever doing that was herself 4 years ago. I think MVP, not to be biased, but MVP should be a lock, in my opinion. Asia Wilson is great, but I don't know. So, yeah, that's just my piece on that. But Stewie, obviously, again, Coach Quinn said it. When you're not getting scoring from Stewie, anything that Seattle needs, she can bring it.
And our director might have a little bit more experience with this other news for today, but LeBron was at the crossover Sega this weekend. Not necessarily WNBA news, a little bit more geared toward just basketball in general here, as Jamal Crawford aims to bring basketball to Seattle every summer with his crossover. So on the 19th, LeBron was announced to play at the crossover, a pro-am run by, of course, Jamal Crawford. Other players who were already attending were Isaiah Thomas, Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, and DeJounte Murray. And then after LeBron, I saw a tweet that there was more news coming, and Jamal retweeted that with just eye emojis. So I wasn't sure what to expect from that. Well, he then announced that Jason Tatum and Aaron Gordon were also going to be playing on Saturday in the crossover. I mean, I don't know what more there is to say. I was excited about LeBron, and then I heard Jason Tatum, and yeah.
I just put up the two of the photos from the starting fives. I mean, you see all those guys that are mentioned. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I thought that it was important to include this in this week's episode because, I mean, all of that's related to pro basketball. I mean, you know that Seattle's always been a hoop city, So to continue to not have an NBA team in this city is ridiculous. I mean, it was said several times over the week by just about anybody that obviously the fan base is there, the hunger, the passion, the love is always there. The arena's there. The arena's back, right? It's just about getting the team here. And obviously, I've talked about it. The NBA locker rooms, the slot for them are already in Climate Pledge Arena. They're already they're not obviously built, but the spots for it's there. It's on the NBA, and they've already talked about expansion, so it's just a matter of time. But just it was madness to see this, just following it along. Bell mentioned it. Our director Curtis, a few of the other Converged Media family was there. Shaylon was there. I mean, Q from Bird's Eye Visuals was there. It was just just ridiculous to see that all, but. There was a lot going on. So why don't we look at what happened the actual day, even the early morning of the game.
Yes. So fans had already started lining up the night before, but early in the morning featured food trucks, pickup games, and nearly 1,000 people lined up. So, I mean, I considered it, but I wasn't sure if that secured your spot in anyway. And with the limited seating, I just left it to.
Well, and then with the lining up, there was a big controversy because when they were officially opening, a bunch of people that hadn't been lined up rushed and got in, as opposed to people that had been lined up. So that was a whole big thing on Twitter. It was.
Do we know if the one guy that showed up with the tent first made it in?
I have no idea.
I was rooting for him. So, anywho, once we get into the game itself here, the fire alarm was pulled pregame, causing fans to have to evacuate and return. And then LeBron was swarmed a few times, causing the game to almost be called off, and security had to come and surround LeBron because everyone just rushed onto the court. I mean, it's LeBron James. We haven't seen a star like that here in a while. So, but of course we expect composure from everyone. So, some unfortunate news here. Chet he was injured in the game. The Thunder rookie exits less than 2 minutes into the game after tweaking his ankle. And then condensation on the court was an issue. So that's what resulted in the cancellation of the game. Paolo Banchero slipped. LeBron seemed to not be fully trusting of the court. So Jamal, of course, made the decision to put the players as a priority and their safety. And I mean, a quote here from him. Let's talk about it. The humidity was there because someone pulled the fire alarm, and powers that be felt more comfortable with the gym doors closed, which we've never done, and they haven't at any of the crossover games I've attended, anywho. But with that, it made the gym a hot box, which in turn caused condensation. From streaming the game, I did notice that those that were there to clean off the court and make sure it was dry were constantly having to be on the court. So definitely an issue. I mean, I haven't been in the gym too much. I don't know what your experience has been with the gym.
I mean, I've been in there a few times. I've been there too recently, but I mean, it can get hot in there. I know that something important that I talked with a few people about was that after this all took place was that Tim Lewicki, one of the guys, brother of Todd Lewicki, big influence in getting CPA built, offered up to Jamal, hey, next year we can do this in CPA. But the only thinking behind that for me is that this is a free event. The crossover is normally a free event. So how do you get that all set up? That's a whole other thing for them to figure out between now and then. I believe the crossover playoffs actually took place over the weekend.
They did.
I think you're getting to the end of that, but hopefully by the end, by next year, they're able to figure something out, because you've obviously got stars that will come here. I was talking with Curtis about it. I mean, how else do you top someone like that? With LeBron here, bring like someone like Steph Curry here, not to put seedlings out there, but it's really exciting to see that. Obviously the passion is great, but I mean, Jason Tatum dropped 20 from what I read.
My goodness, Jason Tatum from the 3.
He talked about it. He said, he'd love to be back here, bring his son, and so the opportunity is there. Just hopefully you set this up right next time and get it all done. But it was fun to watch along what happened.
Yes, I was on Twitter avidly leading up to the game. So moving on here, of course, for some more news in regard to the Pro-Am and LeBron's visit to Seattle. He did work out with the Mystic players at SPU prior to the playoff game versus the Storm. So one thing that I was confused about, because I was almost certain that he was going to be there to watch the Storm game and support Sue Bird. And so were you surprised that they didn't announce that he was there?
I mean, I know that, after the last regular season home game, when they Seattle packed the CPA for that game, sold it out. He was like, oh, Seattle looks lit. I got to get out there. I mean, he did, but I would have liked for him to be at that. That's Bron. That's Bron time. Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on back to our Storm here. They currently obviously won the series 2-0. They now are moving on to a 5-game series. So potentially, yes. Best of 3, right? Best of 5 have to win 3.
Correct.
So they'll move on to the semifinals against the Las Vegas Aces. The first game will be the 28th in Las Vegas, of course. They have the home court. And that's a 1 p.m. game and will be shown on ESPN. Game 2 will be August 31st, again at Las Vegas. A 7 p.m. game shown on ESPN2. September 4th versus Las Vegas here at CPA will be a noon game, and that will be shown on ABC. And then again, like you said, if necessary, we move to game 4 and game 5. Game 4 would take place on the 6th. Game 5 would take place on the 8th, and they would split games.
Yeah, so that's important to note. And there's at least one more guaranteed home game here in Seattle. Yeah. But, the last time these two teams faced off in the playoffs was the 2020 Wubble Finals. Seattle wiped the floor with Vegas. Vegas had some injuries. I don't expect that to go the same way. Would it be nice? Sure, right? To have game 3 be the clincher and then we get out of there. But Vegas, the number 1 seed, Seattle, the 4 seed. That's why they're hosting. This is a big deal. I mean, we talked about it. Asia Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, Kelsey Plum. I didn't mean to rhyme there. Dearica Hamby. There's a lot of talent up and down this roster. And arguably, they're the best team in the league. So it's up. Your big 3 is going to need to step up. You're going to need everybody from your bench. And you're going to need probably superwoman performances from Stewie. Jewel Lloyd's going to need to be consistent throughout. Sue Bird will need to bring it as she has been. Tina's been a great paint presence, but that bench, you're going to need that bench. And hopefully Gabby Williams can come back quicker.
We need her defensive.
Yeah, you're going to need that versatility defensively and her potential scoring because, we've seen what she can do offensively when she's clicking. So that'll be a big series. So switch over to the Sounders here who are fighting to be in a playoff sort of position. I said this before the last game that this was a must win. And I can't necessarily be entirely upset with Seattle's performance against the Galaxy on the road. So August 19th on the road against LA was a 3-3 draw. Player of the game forward Raul Ruidiaz, an 8.3 match rating, 1 goal, 1 assist, 85% passing, 2 chances created on 6 total shots for Raul. The Peruvian, for his efforts in that game, earned MLS Team of the Week bench honors, the 1 goal, 1 assist. So he was named the MLS Team of the Week bench today. This was tough because Seattle goes down 2 goals early, and you're like, well, you're dead to rights. It's over. Whatever. Put it away. I look up about 10 minutes later, and the game's tied. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? Even on one of the Seattle goals, the ball hit the post, I think, twice. And you're thinking, what is going on? You just can't you just can't buy a goal. Seattle would be able to take the lead 3-2. In the 93rd minute, so there were, I believe, 6 minutes of stoppage time. In the 93rd minute, Seattle gave up a penalty. Galaxy were able to equalize, and then we ended up with splitting points. Just from what I have seen and what I have garnered, Seattle put out a great performance and was just really unlucky, which has happened here and there throughout the season. You could have performed much better, but just unfortunate. Because the last few playoff spots in the Western Conference are only decided by a few points. You're 1 point out of a playoff spot right now. You're sitting at 8th. The top 7 teams in the conference make it. So, again, you have to start winning these games. I know that I think the Galaxy are the 1 point ahead of you right now. So winning, so winning against your own competition would have been great. But it's just this season has not been good outside of CCL. For Seattle. 13 losses on the year, only 3 draws. Again, we talked about this. If you make some of those losses draws, we're moving up. We're in a playoff spot right now. So, just unfortunate. The injury report against the Galaxy was the same outside of goalkeeper Andrew Thomas, who's mostly been playing with the Tacoma Defiance, had a fracture. So he was listed on the injury list. We already mentioned that Raul Ruidiaz was on the MLS Team of the Week bench. So congrats to Raul on that. Him, since being back from injury, he's been consistent for Seattle. But it's just, you're going to need some help, and you're going to need to actually start winning games if you want to squeak into the playoffs. You can't really get home field anymore. You've kind of squandered that. And if you want to keep that streak going that's been running since you became an MLS club, you're going to need to really continue to have performances like you did against the Galaxy there. And hopefully some luck comes back on your side.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate. But at the end of the day, you did put yourself in this position with all those losses. So looking ahead, the next team will not feel sorry for you. You travel down on the 26th to play the Portland Timbers with a 7:00 start. Speaking of Portland, I know a few members of the Converge family are down in Portland for Hip Hop Weekend. I believe it's Hip Hop Fest.
Something like that. Well, we've expanded.
Converge is on top of it.
To Portland,
But so this is a big game, obviously. Seattle sits at a 10-win, 13-loss, 3-draw record, 8th in the Western Conference, 33 points on the year. Again, 1 out of a playoff spot. You've got to be able to dig yourself out of a hole. But at this point, is it too far gone for Seattle? It's starting to look like it, but I'm sure there's a shred of hope. There's a shred of hope for you, so hopefully you can hold on to it and keep it running. We switch over to our Kraken here, who we got you some official dates for those Firebirds games.
I thought we did mention this briefly last week, right?
Yeah, and we got you some official numbers as well as some broadcast and organizational news. So, Belle, why don't we take a look at that?
So just a little bit more information. I believe Chuck touched on it last week. The Coachella Valley Firebirds will be having games in the area here. So on October 21st versus Abbotsford, that's going to be at the Kraken Community Iceplex at 3 p.m. But this is a sold out private event. On Sunday, October 23rd versus, again, Abbotsford at Climate Pledge Arena at 6 p.m. Tickets go on sale to the general public on August 22nd at 10 a.m. via Ticketmaster. So make sure you put that in your calendar if you're interested.
Well, that's today.
Oh, shoot. That literally happened already. Yeah, so they're on sale.
I'll check on tickets, but you keep going.
On October 28th versus Calgary, this is at the Angel Angel of the Winds Arena in Everett, and that's a 7 p.m. Tickets go on sale to the general public again on the 22nd at 10 a.m. So those should also be up. On Saturday, October 29th versus Calgary, presented by Alaska Airlines at the Kraken Community Iceplex at 3 p.m. This event is also sold out. Limited tickets will be available through a season ticket member lottery for Kraken and Firebird season ticket members. Do we have an update?
Yeah, so they're only selling the lower bowl for these games. Understandable. Interesting. There's a decent amount of tickets. You can get in for 2 tickets as low as $15. So if you want to see the future of this franchise, yeah, and even $1 tickets, $15. These aren't bad seats at all. So lower bowl, $15. If you want to watch some, wow, there's some. How much are we going here for fourth row? Fourth row is $15. I think $15. Trying to see if there's anything. What do we click? Best seats. $25 for section 1, row V. Oh, that's if you're in the club level, which yeah, $15 to get in to watch semi-pro hockey. It's pretty good. That's at CPA. They want to Angel of the Winds Arena up in Everett, where the Storm played the last few years, as low as $11. If you want to be on the glass, right up on the glass, it's $40, but so not too bad. So if you want to watch some semi-pro hockey, want to get into hockey, but can't really afford Kraken prices, you've got 2 opportunities. The 23rd, versus Abbotsford at Climate Pledge Arena. The 28th versus Calgary at Angel of the Winds Arena. Those are on sale, as Bell mentioned. I don't know how quick they'll go, but pretty good prices to get in and watch your semi-pro team. Basically, if we're using Mariners in baseball term, your AAA team, which will head down back to California in December.
Good to know. We'll move on to our notes for the 16th here. The team announced they are bringing Allison Lucan on in a permanent role and have added Nick Olczyk to the broadcast team. Did I say that right? Lucan will continue working as an analyst across television and radio for Kraken digital channels and for the Seattle Kraken app. Lucan quickly became a hit with the fan base and is also part of At Too Much Man.
It's a podcast for women in hockey who are trying to encourage more women to get into hockey and not feel sort of being alienated by the fan base, which is, again, something that Everett and I talked about, trying to encourage more people from different walks of just about everything to get into hockey.
Very fitting then. Olczyk, the son of Eddie Olczyk, who joined the Kraken broadcast crew this summer, will work across both television and radio in addition to taking on a content development role with an emphasis on new media and streaming. And that's about all the news we have for our Kraken for now. Things should ramp up here soon, but we'll move on to our Reign.
So the Reign over the past week, this isn't NWSL regular season news, so it doesn't affect our standings or our record or playoff spot, but they did play in a tournament. In case you're not aware, soccer, whether it's NWSL, MLS, around the world, there's little tournaments spread here and there, different, basically more trophies to win in a way. Some mean more than others. Excuse me. But this is the Women's Cup. It's held in Louisville. One of the clubs playing in it was Racing Louisville, which is, they've effectively had home field advantage. The first game that the Reign played there, so the Reign already had a bye. They were automatically in the semifinal. They played Copa America on the 17th of August, winning that game 2-1 late. They didn't have goals until the 79th minute. Ziara King, our first player of the game, with 1 goal, which was the equalizer to tie that game up. And then 2 minutes later in the 81st, hometown Husky Olivia Vanderyacht with a goal in the 81st minute, which was the game winner. So the Reign advanced to the finals. Oh, the finals. the finals of the Women's Cup to take on Racing Louisville just a few days later. What's interesting about these matches was that the Reign were really playing their bench, their second team, and they were able to get the win. I mean, they had a few of their starters sub in, they had them on the bench, but it was mostly a second team effort. In the second game, the final against Racing Louisville, you can see obviously there that the Reign were able to win on the 20th, 2-1. This one, I believe the Reign scored first. It was equalized, and they were able to get a late winner. Olivia Athens scoring off of a Ziara King corner. So Z getting the assist there. Z would be named the MVP of the tournament with a goal and the assist. So good for Z there. But Oh, and Jordan Heitema scored the game winner late. So Jordan scores her first game as part of the reign. So hopefully that opens up the floodgates for her to just continue to smash it. And we do have a clip here of the end of the match and the celebration of the match with the cup. So I will have that go right here.
There's the final whistle. OL Reign, your 2022 Women's Cup champions.
Two goal scorers right there together. Big time from OL Reign in the second half to perform with a line change, essentially. And the goals come from Athens and Heitema. Big smiles from some of the players who got some minutes in the first 45. But man, oh man, what a gigantic win for OL Reign. They didn't make it easy on themselves.
So this was the broadcast talked about at the end of a mental game, because, you're getting a lot of your bench and your second players. This factors into my stars of the week, but we'll get to that when that section comes up. But, it's really great to get this experience for these younger players like Athens, who scored, Z, who has been splitting times with the forwards up top, Heitema scoring her first goal with the Reign. It's great to see that, great to get that out of the way, and, to come back from some ties and deficits in those two games and to win a cup amidst this is a tough schedule, because they played from the 17th, they played on the 14th, so 17th, 20th, and they'll play on the 26th. So they're going to be keeping busy over the past few weeks to win something like this, have a nice victory in there, like a reward. It's great to have that. So it's great to see more hardware, but nice to see those players get mixed in. I know players like Rose Lavelle didn't play, Quinn didn't play, Tobin Heath didn't play, so getting rest. But for those who did, those who might split time, might get subbed in late, those who have been mainly riding the bench, to be able to come in to contribute to help win something like that is great to see. So talking about records and standings, heading back into the NWSL regular season, the Reigns today 6-win, 4-loss, 6-draw record, which is good for 5th in the NWSL at 24 points. They're in a playoff spot, one place. Well, now they're 4 points out of second through third place, and 1 point out of 6. So you got to hopefully continue to stack some points over as we continue towards the end of the season here, which ends early October. But you're still in the playoff spot. So regardless, it's good seeding, but again, like to improve it. Unlike Seattle, the Sounders, who are kind of gasping for air, fighting tooth and nail to get what they can. Our Seawolves have relatively been quiet since the MLR Championship took place, but on the 18th last week, they had the MLR Draft with 4 total selections over the three rounds. So, Belle, what do we take away and meet some of our newest Seawolves?
Yeah, round 1, pick number 12 was fly half Shane Berry, who's 5'11", 175 pounds, and comes to us from UCLA. Round 2 selections, pick number 3, center Samuel Wiggert, who's 6'3", 215 pounds, and comes from Trinity Western University. Number 12, loose forward Neil Moylett, 6'2", 255 pounds, from Lindenwood University. And our round 3 selection, again, pick 12, prop James, and I'm going to ask for help on this one, Kwaiwinu?
Your guess is as good as mine. I know he's out of Spanaway, so he's a local kid.
He's 6 foot, 260 pounds, from Iowa Central University. So that about wraps up our draft there.
Good to see that. So some interesting positions. A new fly half. Don't expect Shane to start anytime soon, with AJ Latimo kind of occupying that spot. Sam Wiegert, Neil Moylett, and then a prop in James. It'll be interesting to see when we see some of these guys. I know some of the Seawolves draft picks that we saw last year didn't get much time at all. So we'll see about that. But, hopefully building off of the title appearance last year, granted all the circumstances, the much better season than they've had the last 2 years, can sort of build off that, and we can see another playoff appearance this upcoming season.
Yes.
But obviously much more to go through that, and you'll be without your captain relatively early on. So no Dragons news as we go through that. We're hoping to hear some XFL stuff
Soon.
Yeah, I mean, I know their season begins next year, but I don't know. I'd like to hear about teams coming together.
Yeah.
We'll see about that. We'll head over to Stars of the Week for Seattle because they're not just individual ones. We got some groups here. Bell went with the Storm Big Three of Sue Bird, Jewel Lloyd, and Brianna Stewart. Why did we go with the Big Three?
They understood the assignment for game 2 against the Washington Mystics. Natasha Cloud, during her post-game presser after game 1, said that they were going to be back, they were going to be better, and they were going to push for that game 3 in Washington. The Storm understood that. They understood after watching Chicago and New York and how that game went that there was going to be a sense of urgency to win that game. And they were able to combat that well. And Bird, Lloyd, and Stewart all did what they were supposed to do to pull that win off.
Yeah, I mean, your Big Three is your Big Three for a reason. And heading into Vegas, you're really going to need them all to perform. So I would agree with you on that. I personally went with the Reign Keepers from the Women's Cup. I know I mentioned that in the Reign segment. Laurel Ivory and Claudia Dickey. Laurel Ivory started the game versus Club America. Dickey started against Racing Louisville. Both of them players that had not gotten any minutes, as Valentilus Joyce has really commanded that keeper spot all year. But they both stepped up. I mean, I know there were goals in it, but to come in and play good clubs and to help your team come out and win a cup, I mean, that's got to be great for them. So great to see them get minutes. Great for them to help get some wins there for the Reign. And, it's always good. It's always nice to sort of spread that around and see the bench contributors, see players who normally wouldn't get that spotlight come in and make an impact. So overall, I would say it's a solid week. I know last week and we talked about mixed bag, but the Seahawks will round out their preseason here against the Cowboys on Friday, I believe it is, down in Dallas at Jerry's World. This upcoming homestand for the Mariners is big. Ichiro weekend this weekend, so come out and hopefully, if you can see that, the Hatback Bar and Grill will be open, and we'll have some stuff cooking up for that here within the next few days, I'm sure. The Storm continued their playoffs after a little bit of a break. That won't come until the end of the week here. Start of next week. The Sounders continue to fight for a playoff spot. Another rivalry week here against Portland. The Kraken, kind of quieter.
Moving along.
The Reign will get back to their regular season. The Seawolves make their draft picks and will probably go quiet again. All in all, I would say it's solid. So until we see you at the end of the month, this is Charles Hammaker here with Belle Garcia. Thank your people behind that. We got some people back here. We got Matt Bermudez is back here, one of our photographers. Curtis behind the camera, Shaylon back there. Until we see you again, do whatever you can to make today a great day.